Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Concurrent Session C3, the Brain Injury Court Navigator Program Overview and Early Learning Session. My name is Ken Zolatar, and I am joined by my colleague Sarah Lindsay, and will be your facilitators for the session. Before we get started, I wanted to review some housekeeping notes and then introduce our speakers. Please note the Zoom toolbar at the bottom of your screen. You can use the Q&A feature to submit questions throughout the presentation. We'll review those questions at the end of the session and do our best to answer as many as possible. We will also have some time for discussion at the end where we'll encourage you to use the chat for the discussion. And if you'd like, you can come off of mute, turn on your camera, and speak directly to the group. Prior to that point, please ensure your microphone is on mute during the presentation. This session will be recorded and uploaded to the conference website, which you'll have access to for 90 days following the conference. I'd also like to remind everyone that we do have closed captioning for all of our sessions. To access that closed captioning, you can click the CC icon in that toolbar window. Depending on your monitor size, you may need to click the circle with 3 dots and click the More feature to access that feature. We kindly ask that you complete the evaluation for this session. So seeing that this is the third round through, you'd likely know that all of the evaluations are part of the conference platform. So the same button where you click to join this session, there's another button beside it that says evaluation or survey. So you can click on that and respond to those questions to help us know how we can improve your experience moving forward. We'd also like to respectfully ask that all those attending today's session engage with each other thoughtfully and always consider the impact of your words and interactions on others. As facilitators, we will not tolerate any abusive or inappropriate behavior or hate speech, and will ensure that anyone who engages in such behavior is removed from the session. If you have been disturbed or affected by such an event, please do what you need to do for you. Take a break, step outside, practice deep breathing, reach out to someone you trust. If you're in a crisis and require immediate support, please click on the FAQ icon on the conference homepage to access contact information for Connex Ontario. If you'd like to report an incident, you can contact the event manager, Sherry Sim, by either clicking on the assistance button on the top right menu bar of the screen to send an email, or you can text Sherry directly at 416-605-5975. With housekeeping sorted, I'd now like to introduce our presenters for this session. So please join me in welcoming Lucy Gudgeon, Director of Programs at the Elizabeth Fry Society, Toronto, and Dr. Flora Matheson, Research Scientist and Unity Health Toronto Chair in Homelessness, Housing, and Health. Thank you so much, and we look forward to hearing the presentation.
Thank you, Ken. Appreciate being here today. And Madison, thank you for getting the slides up for us. Just wait for a second until they're ready. Thank you very much. So we're going to present on the Brain Injury Bail Court Navigator Program today, and I'm going to present the context. And then Lucy's going to talk about the program itself. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So globally, since the year 2000, women and girls have been incarcerated at a faster rate than men and boys. And in Canada, we know that the number of people held under bail, pre-trial custody, meaning they're legally innocent and awaiting trial, has almost tripled over the last 30 years. And in Ontario today, 80% of people in the criminal legal system are on bail, including approximately 15,000 women. And we know that the majority of people in the criminal legal system are living with brain injury, with rates ranging anywhere from 19 to 95% among women. And that's a huge upper rate of 95%, when it's only about 8% in the general population. We also know that women have unique pathways into the criminal legal system. Women are often victims of intimate partner violence, and are often charged when their partners are charged with domestic violence crimes. They're victims of sex work, and they're often involved in trafficking. And these situations also put them at risk for criminal legal involvement, and brain injury often results from this violence. And a recent study done by a colleague of mine in Scotland found that 78% of women in Scotland's prisons have a history of significant head injury, most of which occurred in the context of prolonged intimate partner violence. And 40% had a disability associated with their head injury. So just a quick review of definitions of brain injury. So traumatic brain injury is an external force that disrupts normal brain function. And some causes of this type of brain injury could be motor vehicle accidents or falls or assaults. So think intimate partner violence and sports injuries. And non-traumatic brain injury is an injury that happens inside the body, or maybe there's a substance introduced into the body that damages brain tissues. So it happens after birth, and it's not related to congenital or degenerative disease. So some causes could be anoxia or hypoxia, so insufficient or complete lack of oxygen to the brain. Could be brain tumors, it could be stroke or opioid overdose or some source of infections. So TBI is associated with cognitive and communication, emotional, behavioral challenges that complicate the bail, incarceration processes and create barriers to successful reintegration. So cognitive challenges include alterations in attention and memory, multitasking, self-monitoring, planning and organizing, problem solving and reasoning. TBI is a disability and it's an invisible disability. So we don't see it, so we don't recognize it easily. And we may think that someone doesn't have a disability when they really do have a disability. So TBI leaves a person with a spectrum of cognitive and communication and behavioral deficits. And this is where it becomes really complicated for people who become involved with the criminal legal system and professionals who are working with those with TBI. Now, we know that legal outcomes for people with TBI are horrific or terrible. About 2% of people in the general population have a TBI, but we saw earlier, and I talked about earlier, that the prevalence can be upwards of 90% among people who are seen in the courts and the prisons. We know that rates of incarceration are higher among people with TBI, up to almost 3 times the rate of people without TBI, and especially among younger people. We know that in custody, they have higher rates of serious disciplinary charges for infractions in the prison systems. And we know that upon release, they have higher rates of rearrest and reincarceration. They also have negative self-reported experiences in the criminal legal system, and communication is a key barrier for them in the courts and with the police, and even with their lawyers and with the judges. So there's a clear need to revamp our criminal processes to ensure that equity and accessibility for people who are experiencing this type of disability. So let's talk specifically about bail. The bail court is fast-paced and complex, as we know. It requires people to think, to quickly understand legal information and communicate effectively. It also sets the conditions of release that a person must follow to be successful on bail. So for someone with a brain injury, navigating the bail process and living on conditions can be difficult to impossible. For example, brain injury can make it difficult to understand and respond during bail hearings, which require quick thinking and problem solving. Know what you're agreeing to when you receive bail court orders. Read and process legal documents, including bail conditions, and remember important details such as curfews, court dates, and check-ins with a supervision officer. So many criminal legal professionals, including police, court staff, and supervision officers, aren't trained to recognize brain injuries, something that we really need to do some work on. And as a result, when a person with brain injury struggles to process information or follow orders, they may be seen as defiant, uncooperative, or unwilling to comply, rather than as a person, someone who needs, deserves, and has a right to accommodation for their health condition. So forgetting bail conditions isn't intentional. It's a symptom of a person's injury. Because the bail system doesn't allow or doesn't accommodate brain injury-related challenges, people are more likely to breach conditions, leading to rearrest and continued involvement in the criminal legal system. So despite growing recognition of the challenges faced by people with brain injury and systemic gaps in brain injury awareness and accommodation, there really are few to no supports in place to ensure people with brain injury can successfully navigate the bail process, and there are especially few supports for women. Without change, many will remain caught in the cycle of incarceration. We did a paper recently. It was written with colleagues from Scotland and the United States and Canada. And we spoke of the need for interventions for women and youth with brain injury at release. And these interventions need to be holistic to reduce the constant cycle of reincarceration. And we suggested several domains of need for women and youth that include substance use. These probably are very familiar to you. Substance use, trauma, intimate partner violence, mental health, housing precarity, and cognitive and communication difficulties. So any approaches to care need to follow trauma-informed and gender-sensitive practices and be person-centered, acknowledging persons' complex histories of trauma in combination with their experience of brain injury. The initial gem of the idea for the bail court pilot program that we're talking to you about today emerged from the Breaking the Cycle network. And this network is a group of community and government partners who are committed to developing solutions, and people with lived experience. And we're committed to developing solutions that reduce criminal legal involvement with a specific focus on reentry to break the cycle of reincarceration for people with brain injury. With Lucy at Elizabeth Fry Society Toronto, we've been able to bring this pilot to life. And Lucy's going to walk you through its early implementation and provide an overview of the program. So Lucy, over to you.
Thank you so much, Flora. Hi, everybody. The first thing I want to say about our bail navigation program is that this program is funded by foundations. And we were lucky that Flora and her team were able to reach out to a number of foundations that they're aware of and get really private funding for this program that's taking place in the courts. The deliverables of the, and actually, sorry, first we had funding that would have provided us with one navigator, and we were lucky to get enough funding to have two navigators. And as it's turned out, it's a blessing to have two because it's very busy in the courts. The staff are really busy. We had a nice synergy in that over COVID, during those years, Toronto's bail court moved to a specialized court, which is located in kind of the northwest part of the city. And lots of the court was happening virtually. And about last year, May-ish, women started coming back to the court to appear in person. And previously, we had quite a robust volunteer program in the courts that provided support to women in the courts. And as court transitioned to virtual, we lost a lot of interest from volunteers because they like to be present. So it worked. The implementation of this program tied in and dovetailed nicely with us bringing back quite a robust program of volunteering in the Toronto Regional Bail Court. So our volunteers, this program is in Toronto to the person. So the volunteers are in the court. We have a lot of students who are maybe pre-law and they like to be witnessing the courts and helping out people in the hallways. And we've been able to utilize them to provide supports for this program as well. Next slide. Thanks. The start date for this program, we're using the start date as the date we hired the 2 navigators. And if anybody here is involved in hiring, you know that that can be a large time-consuming process. So we had our 2 navigators start August 25th. And we were lucky. The 2 women that we hired for this program, one has an extensive background in research, and the other one has an extensive background in social work and working with people in crisis. So the 2 staff really complement each other because this project also involves collection of data for research. So the training process that we had for these staff were a completion of the Ontario Brain Injury Brain Basics program. They completed research ethics training, concussion awareness. They completed an naloxone and harm reduction training, and as well did some training regarding the effect of opioid overdose and anoxic brain injury. And that's an important pathway to brain injury that people may not be thinking about. As our clients are being revived from overdose, they may have been unconscious and without breath for some period of time, and that can cause a brain injury. And then they also had Toronto Regional Bail Court observations. So just kind of learning what the processes are like up in that court. And it's still kind of unfolding. We went into this project with the expectation that it would be iterative. So we would be responding to what's emerging. So as court processes change or as new interest holders come in, we're responding, and we've had a really interesting pathway so far. Next slide. Thank you. One of the key pieces was to create awareness of the navigation program at the bail center, and this is ongoing. We've had, and in large part because the numbers of staff who are in each department is huge. So, like for example, with the duty councils, there could be dozens and dozens and dozens of different duty councils who are gradually kind of coming to awareness of how this program runs. So we had 15 meetings with key interest holders in the courts. That includes the Crown's bail program, and bail program has been a really great support for us in developing our program and kind of letting us know what they had been observing over time. We met with the judiciary, Fred Victor. So a number of these interest holders are social service agencies who are already active in the courts in mental health and justice initiatives. So we've had really great responses from all the players that you see listed there. I think one of our key supporters in the courthouse is the Toronto Police Service, who are in the courts, who have really been working really collaboratively with my team there to ensure they have access to the women who are appearing in person. Next slide, please. So one of the things we really are working on here is establishing referral pathways for clients. So the CMHA and CODA at the Toronto Regional Bail Center, the Toronto Acquired Brain Injury Network, we are working closely with the Toronto Brain Injury Navigator, the bail program, legal aid duty council. 2 pathways that are kind of interesting, one of which we're kind of struggling with, is the pathway to access healthcare. And brain injury assessment and diagnosis, it can be necessary to receive some supports. And though that diagnosis requires a neuropsychologist to give the diagnosis, a formal diagnosis. So we continue to work on this pathway. We've had some good conversations with Inner City Health Associates in Toronto and the Inner City Family Health Team, who we've worked with in the past at EFRI. They have some great substance use programming, and we're looking to partner with them to have a designated pathway for diagnosis when necessary. And the Downtown East Justice Center is a partner that we hadn't expect to be working with. And it's actually it's unfolding and it's interesting right now. So it's a pathway for women to access this East Justice Center and still receive supports from our navigation team. The Downtown East Justice Center has their own supports, case management supports that are built in to their program for mental health, substance use, homelessness, and also they are doing some brain injury support, but they have a limit of 70 clients that they can support in that program. So we're being able now to connect clients who may have been missed by the screening process and connect them to the East Justice Center and also provide ongoing support. So that still continues to unfold. We're meeting with the Downtown East Justice Center regularly to try and see how we can each support each other. Next slide, please. I see a question there about the screening tool that we're using. We're going to get to that. So the program activities, to kind of describe what the staff are doing, is every day. So, and we looked at different models of this. Our initial thought was that we would take referrals from other players in the courthouse due to council crowns or mental health and bail program staff who observed somebody or noted. But instead, what we decided to do with every person, every woman who's appearing in person in the courts. The reason for doing that is not everyone may have in their awareness that they've experienced situations that could have harmed their brain. And we decided to meet with everyone in person, and they can or cannot work with us. It's entirely voluntary. We have a lot of volunteers, as I mentioned, in the courts. So if people need support with phone calls, they can opt into that as well. So the first thing our staff do is they get a list from the courts each day who's appearing in person, and they begin to meet with the women in person in interview rooms in the cells. And there's private space where they can do that. They tell them a little bit about our program, ask if they want to participate, and offer other services if they don't. We're really wanting to keep a trauma-informed lens about having these conversations with people and accepting that people may not want to meet with us, period. So we're doing other supports. So we meet with them, screen them, and make different connections to bail release planning, provide emotional support for families, meet with sureties. One of the things that's been interesting that our team's been able to do is create new information for sureties and family members, explaining the bail process in plain language, because we're coming from a place of making all our information as accessible as possible. So what that means is not using jargon. If we're using infographics, making them clear. Our team has been able to create some infographics even to explain navigation, getting downtown Toronto from the courthouse. We're connecting people to community-based brain injury services if and when it's warranted and they're interested. A key component of what we're doing is helping people navigate the bail system itself. So just to tag up on what Flora was mentioning earlier about helping people understand what they've agreed to, what the staff are noticing quite a bit is immediately upon release, people may have forgotten or want to change the conditions they just agreed to shortly before. So one of the key elements of what the staff is doing is going through the conditions, going through the next court date. As women are released from custody, our staff stay on site until every woman has been released, and they provide them with clothing if necessary, transportation to get downtown, navigation to get to where they're going. We attempt to book people into shelter beds. That is quite challenging in the city. So they usually start that early in the day and try to hold a bed until release. We've got a significant issue with not having access to shelter and for women who are being released. Once people are released, our staff call and remind people about upcoming court dates or appointments that they may have. That's another key element, is reminders. Next slide, please. And this is the brain injury screening tool that we use. So this is the HELPS screening tool. And there are a few different tools. We use this one and we use an adaptation to it with some more questions. So HELPS says, have you been hit on the head? Were you in the emergency room? Did you lose consciousness? Runs through a list of problems and symptoms, and if there's been any illness associated. And we also talk about, next slide, please, the domestic violence specific screening. So given that we're aware and that the research shows that many women who we may be seeing in the courts have experienced gender-based violence, we use this tool to build on our questions in the HELPS. So this is kind of elicits a little bit more information. And we also are eliciting information regarding substance opiate use overdoses and any hospitalizations, loss of consciousness, or revivals that they may have had. Thank you. Next slide. So what we're seeing, some of the challenges after release, it's not going to be any news to people in this room, I think, is that people can be released without proper clothing, shoes, jackets, weather appropriate clothing. When women are released, they don't have any way, there's no access to funds or transportation to get to where they need to go. Many times they don't have a phone or they don't have any numbers or and that's two things. It makes it challenging for our staff to contact them. One of the things that we are doing now to respond to that is we're setting up, or we have set up actually, is a Facebook Messenger account just for the staff to use, just simply to message out to clients on Messenger. Vanier, belongings retained at Vanier is people's personal property that they had when they were arrested may have remained at the Vanier Institute Center for Women, which is the prison nearby. Their immediate needs on release could be mental health, food, harm reduction. So we're trying to provide like a little snack for people, referrals, the bed space, harm reduction supplies for them on release. As we've noticed, a large number of our clients have no fixed address. A lot of the releases are occurring at the end of the day, and by that time, really the courthouse is empty. Our staff have ensured that their hours are responsive to that, because we always want the women to be able to meet with someone on release. Next slide, please. So prior to release, we're conducting the screen for brain injury. We're supporting communication between client, counsel, and family, whether that's private counsel or duty counsel. The staff are working quite closely with duty counsel. And as well, as I mentioned, contact shelters, food banks, etc., based on client needs. We have had quite a lot of women come through with domestic violence co-charges. They can't return to their home, so there's a bit of coordination that happens. Our volunteer program has been great in being able to provide supports for that as well, doing some of these referrals and making contacts. Thank you. Next slide. When the women are released, the staff meet with them, they debrief the court. They go through their conditions with them, debrief what happened and what's going to happen next. They spend some time with them, educating them about what possible TBI could be. And what we've seen, actually, it's interesting that some of the women are already aware that they have brain injury, so we're making connections. We provide snacks, water, help the individuals get home or to a place of safety, offer clothing. The Toronto Regional Bail Court has a room where, like a bit of a supply closet where all the different agencies can put in snacks, food, clothing, and so we're helping women find something appropriate to wear to get on their way. Next slide. The ongoing supports that we provide are connecting clients with community resources, and our primary concern here is trying to connect people to healthcare if they don't have it. We accompany clients to court check-ins and appointments. We remind clients about their court date, and we answer questions relating to court process. Not legal advice, but court process, what to expect, what's happening next, where they need to go to report, etc. Next slide. So here's the numbers. The first month staff were hired, they spent doing a lot of intensive training that I spoke to you about. And then they began to see clients. Actually, they only did one day in September. So this is really the results from October that we got on Friday, just for the month, how many clients had been seen. So 198 women were met and interviewed in the interview rooms while in custody. 34 women have been provided with ongoing supports, and 23 support letters were provided. So the support letters are, we've been working with duty counsel to explain what we can do and how we could support a release plan. Of the 198 women who were seen and interviewed and agreed to screening, 60% of the women who were offered screening actually screened positive for brain injury. Again, I just want to say too that's not a diagnosis, it's a screening that they meet the conditions. It's the basis for which people could then be referred to neuropsychiatry. One of the biggest issues that showed up is the geographic barriers to bail navigation. So in Toronto, the specialized court is in the northwest quadrant of the city. As I mentioned, it's 20 kilometers north of downtown. And the prison where women are held, the Vanier Center for Women, is 60 kilometers west of that. So this is a generous travel time, 2 hours each way. As you can see from that Google snapshot, it's 2 hours, 2.5 hours, using multiple different forms of transportation to get from the bail court to Milton to pick up belongings. So this is an issue that we're working on. Previously, the Toronto Bail Program was kind of funding off the side of their desk travel vouchers. It's $200 each way to have a woman go from the bail center to the prison and then be dropped off at a Toronto subway station is $200. So this is a real difficulty and a systemic barrier both to bail navigation and in general. It's a systemic barrier, particularly for marginalized clients. which is a lot of whom were saying they don't have access to a car, they don't have friends or family. This placement of the court, of course, also, the prison also creates difficulty for visiting and planning. So if you wanted to have a family member come out and try and plan a release with you, this distance is a significant barrier. Retrieving property is also an issue. We're working with the A&D just to try and determine, there's sometimes property is dropped off down at Toronto South Detention Center, which is in Toronto, but also quite far from downtown. And we're trying to just to substantiate what that looks like, how often, and what would be the best processes we can establish to try and help women get to pick up their belongings, which often, by the way, might be a phone, so they don't have anybody to call. Next slide, please. So what might a human rights approach look like to bail for accused persons with brain injury? And Flora touched on a lot of this in her presentation. So early identification, so screening for brain injury, bail vetters health intake, it might look like that. Disability-informed bail decisions. So recognize that brain injury can be a factor that affects behavior and comprehension. And it's not just a risk factor for criminality. Bail conditions can be tailored to people's cognitive capacity. And maybe supporting bail programs with community brain injury services. Provide structured support, housing, and treatment access. We know that there's a real lack of service for this population and most of the populations that we work with. One of the things that's really key that I think anybody and everybody can do is make communication accommodations. So what that looks like is using plain language, repeating things, using visual cues, written summaries, not using jargon and sarcasm, and just confirming people's understanding of their conditions. And this kind of communication accommodations really could just be implemented as a matter of course, ensuring that we have the time to go over things in plain language with people. And then for system oversight and training, and Flora's actually working on this at the Toronto Regional Bail Centre, is developing and implementing training to understand brain injury and what that can look like in a court setting. So collecting data, of course, and monitoring outcomes, and Flora's going to talk about that in our project. So these are all our contact people. Maybe this could have been a last slide. Megan and Hannah are our bail court navigators at the Toronto Regional Bail Centre. You can reach out to them or any of us for questions. Flora?
Great, thanks, Lucy. That was a really nice overview. Thank you very much. And the numbers stand for themselves in terms of, there's a real need at the Toronto Regional Bail Centre. So really glad that the program is there and that your team is there, Lucy. So thank you. So just a couple of slides on next steps. So one, Lucy mentioned that we're doing an evaluation of the program. And we're doing both a qualitative and quantitative evaluation. We want to look at some key metrics for the quantitative evaluation. We want to really understand, Lucy mentioned the diagnosis, and sometimes the diagnosis is important. So we do want to track whether there are some women who are obtaining a brain injury diagnosis and how many. We want to know if how many women are being referred to community-based health services, so mental health, brain injury services, substance use services. We want to know how many women are being released on bail through the navigation program. So, Hannah and Megan are working with Duty Council on bail release plans, and so how many release plans are being done, and we also want to know how well the women are doing on those release plans. So we want to know, we also want to know how well the women are doing in terms of understanding the court process, and then how many are obtaining ODSP and other long-term financial supports. I mean, there are other things that we will also be looking at, but these are the primary ones. for our funders that they were interested in. And then we want to do some qualitative interviews. Thanks, Madison. Want to do some, you're quick on the draw there. We want to do some qualitative interviews. So we want to talk to about 15 clients, and we want to talk to both Hannah and Megan. So we really want to understand the women's experience with the program. And as they travel and journey through the program, what that journey was like. We hope they have good things to say about the program, and I'm pretty sure I'm positive they will. But we also want to know where the barriers are, because we want to talk about those barriers and document those and show where things are still not working well in the system. And we all know where those are, but it's always good from a implementation science perspective to document those and to show those and to put them on paper and to show it in a research perspective, because then we have an evidence base for it. And that's always good to have. So we want to document those, and we want to document those through Hannah and Megan's perspective as well. And we want to document how the process is working so that we can improve as we go forward, and hopefully build on this program and create more sites and build maybe programs in the community. So I'm looking forward to the evaluation and what we are able to glean from it. So that's one next step. The other next step is that we also have another project in place at the Toronto Regional Bail Center. And you'll notice that many of the names on the right-hand side here of the key interest holders were in a previous slide that we showed. These are the same people that we spoke to about the Navigator program before it went into play at the TRBC. We also spoke with these groups about educational opportunities, and we have money from the Law Foundation of Ontario to develop an educational program or educational modules for these groups around brain injury and cognitive communication challenges, and how to work better with clients who have brain injury and cognitive communication challenges. And so we've spoken to almost all of these groups. There's 2 or 3 more that we need to speak with, and we are in the process of doing that. And so we're really excited about this opportunity, because this is a lot of people that we have an opportunity to provide training to. And we are working with the 4 people that you see at the bottom of the screen there on the right-hand side: Constance Colburn, Kathy Helvanik, Caitlin Bushell, and Julie Osbelt. And they're brain injury specialists, and they're helping us develop this educational package that we're going to deliver, and that's going to be delivered in the new year. And so we're gonna, we've conducted the needs assessment, and Lucy was part of that, and so was Madison and Arthur McLuhan, who's not on the screen today, but part of the team. And we're going to deliver this in the new year, as I said, and then we're going to evaluate and disseminate the results of this program. So we're very excited about this as well. So just wanted to let you know that that's happening as well. And we're now at the Q&A and discussion section of the our program. Thank you. So thank you for listening, and we're going to open it up now. We have some discussion questions that we're hoping we can get to, at least 1 or 2 of them, maybe 3, but we also want to take your questions because you may have some questions for us. So we're going to open it up now, and we're happy to have questions either in the Q&A or questions in verbally. So I'll turn it back over to our facilitators. I only see Sarah.
Well,
Ken.
hi. I'm still here. There's quite a few questions in the chat. I think some have been answered throughout the presentation. And I see that we're building connections, which is one of the great things. So asking about programs in Hamilton and making that offer to connect.
There was one question that came in through the Q&A that maybe you can speak to is, are individuals who are affected by fetal alcohol, are individuals who are fetal alcohol affected included in these services?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring this up as well. There's special populations, and it's people with fetal alcohol syndrome can be one, that also really benefit from this brain injury approach, a human rights approach. So responding in with, a neurodisability rights approach. So yes, and it ties into another question that was asked about, are there hopes and plans to expand this to more rural communities where there's a lack of supports and higher rates of gender-based violence? Implementation across the province, well, firstly, keep in mind, this is funded through foundations. It's not funded by the government, it's not funded by MAG. But does this navigation service need to exist across the province? Yes. And it needs to exist, and there's special equity issues because we know our project is with women, and we know that some populations of women, Indigenous women and racialized women, are much more likely to have sustained gender-based violence, and other populations are much more likely to have sustained fetal alcohol syndrome. So all of these, and rural women who are at more higher risk. So all of this kind of navigation needs to exist in all these different spaces. At the moment, we're collecting evidence. This is the first project that we are aware of this type in the province, and we're going to evaluate it closely, thinking about that. For that matter, we're not sure that this program will be funded beyond the pilot period. We hope so, but that's what we're establishing right now.
And that notion of funding, as many of us in the nonprofit sector can attest to, is an ongoing challenge, which brings us back, I think, for the group. And that's one of the great things about a conference is we have our panelists and speakers, but we also have an opportunity, with all of us within our own experiences, to share some feedback. So that initial discussion question may lead into a bit of a funding conversation, but to repeat, and from what Madison has put in the chat, asking all of you as delegates and attendees, what are your thoughts on ways to grow this program across the province and to sustain it? So you're welcome to type into the chat a response to that question, or if you'd like, you can come off mute and participate that way.
We're looking for anybody from MAG. Anybody from MAG want to put their hands up and fund our program?
Anybody from any of the ministries? We'd be very grateful for any ideas.
I also noticed there's another question in the Q&A section, just maybe while people are thinking about that other discussion question, if we want to address that.
I do see that question in there. Great question, and we could work with them. Initially, we had planned when we were delivering this service that we were going to be having 1 day per week where we'd be down at OCJT. And so far we haven't done it. We were going to be doing it with the bail program. So we'd have women appearing on one certain day. And maybe there's a way that we can do some of this service delivery at the Gudgeon Court as well. I'm wondering if we can maybe be in touch online and try and see how that might look. Thank you, Sue.
Maybe we could move to the next question, could we?
Mm-hmm. So I think Madison's going to populate the next question into the chat.
Thank you.
And so that question, I'll read aloud, says, other than within bail, where else would this kind of program be of value if there was an opportunity to introduce it? So from our delegates in the room, based on your own experiences and backgrounds, could you see, yeah, that kind of transition or pivot, or taking some of the learnings and findings and apply them to some of your work?
For like the people within the meeting that we could speak in, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so I am in outreach court support worker with the YWCA Hamilton, and I work in the courthouse. So I think that like even having all the knowledge that we've had through the session today is very helpful, and I could see it being very useful because just some of the criteria and the resources that are for individuals that do have brain injuries, most of my clients could be in fact individuals of that, and without that information I didn't consider it. So I think for individuals navigating just as court support workers or navigating the court system, as I work really closely with parole and bail, I think that like this information and programs like this could be really useful.
Thank you. There's also in the chat some probation and parole was another space mentioned.
Diversion court.
Diversion, thank you.
Allison had a question there about how could this be used in the detention centers, and it's funny, Allison, this is something that we've considered too. That and sometimes actually the women have been appearing in court. They actually very recently had a head injury in an accident or during their arrest or whatever. We've had women who just came back from emergency, and we were trying to figure out how we can communicate with healthcare, and we've been doing a little bit of inreach into healthcare at Vanier. But generally in detention, a rights-based approach would be to do screening during the health screening at intake. But I know that there's some, there's difficulties with, sometimes people don't want to acknowledge their health issues while they're incarcerated. So this is why I kind of go back to what's very helpful that all of us can apply in our work is doing kind of like a universal precautions on our communication with people. And in terms of being set up well in advance of release planning is its own ball of wax for sure. There's a lot of difficulty with release planning. And one of the things that we know and we're finding and we're really butting up against it is that services are really limited. And just to think about this for our clients too, one of the things after you've had a head injury, and I've seen this where someone's been badly assaulted, one of the things that you need to do to help your brain recover is, make sure you are sleeping and eating well, not, trying to limit your activities, focus on just recover, sleep, allow your brain to have some time to heal post injury or post concussion. And when you think about that in terms of people who are homeless, they just don't have access to it. And that is a lot of our incarcerated population. So when they're being released, possibly with a head injury, they don't have a safe place to go or to sleep or recover. So it's a real gap, a significant gap.
Maybe I can just add to that. In some other jurisdictions in the UK, they're ahead of us in terms of working with people with brain injury in the prison system. And there's something called the Prison Link Worker Program in the UK, and they do navigation within the prison system for people with brain injury, and they help with that discharge planning as well. So that is that's kind of, I was looking at that before when we were looking at developing this type of program. But it's very difficult to get something started in the detention centers and the jails here. So that's why we opted for working with DeFi in the community and working, and then it ended up that we were working in the bail process, which actually is a really good thing. But there is the prison link worker in the UK, and it's been around for 10 or more years over there and working quite well. So just wanted to mention that.
Madison, would you like to share our third discussion question? I see we have about 5 minutes left in our session today. And so the question that is now in the chat for everyone says, what is happening in your area with respect to brain injury and court support and discharge planning? An answer of, I'm not sure, is an acceptable answer. It's
Or nothing.
it's also an indicator of, some
Well,
a need for some communications and kind of PR support there.
well, here in the north, it's worse off for brain injury survivors. We have less services and more of a distance to deal with just 800,000 people, 900,000 people for all of the north, anything past Barrie region, and it's horrendous up here. Like more wait lists on everything everywhere. There's a lot of room for improvement. There was one report suggest that sub-regional police pays a lot of money to just try to bring someone else to another municipality for dealing with the court system. And we're the one footing the bill instead of communicating with the other municipality to pay a portion of it. Whether it be going to Sault Ste. Marine or Bay or even Toronto,
That doesn't sound good. Thank you for sharing that. I know there are justice supports for mental health and addictions, but I'm not aware of any ABI specific Southwest region. Nothing specific to brain injury support in terms of court, but as far as I'm aware, in the Kingston area. North Bay as well. Thank you. So a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, North Bay Brain Injury Association got disbanded. They're not around anymore.
Great question from Colleen. Did you get any pushback from the courts? Not so far. We're about a month into it. There was quite a lot of pre-implementation consultation. So what we were hearing was a lot of the players, the active players in the system, are recognizing that there's gaps in services, and actually quite a bit of concern, I would say, from the judiciary and everyone else about how women are faring in the courts, with or without a brain injury complication. But I found there was quite a lot of concern and quite a lot of identification of problem areas that need to be addressed. Flora, what do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. We did a lot of free education in the year before the program went into play. We had meetings with pretty much all of the key interest holders at the TRBC to even before we knew we had money to put the program in place, to talk to everyone to say, okay, this is we're telling you about an issue. You may not know about the issue, but brain injury is highly prevalent in this population. We're interested in putting this Navigator program in place, and we're looking for money for it. And actually, the Ministry of Attorney General was really supportive and helped us make connections in the TRBC and gave us names of people to talk to. And it was just like a domino effect. And it was really, really helpful. And I think making those connections and having those conversations and explaining who we were and saying, this is the evidence and the evidence base is there, was really kind of opened the door. And I think because it's kind of a microcosm of the court system, and we didn't have to go with the larger court system, that we got buy-in, and they got it, and they were really open to it. And I think we had some key some very key people who said, I know this is an issue, and they supported us, and that was really important. So yeah, I agree, Lucy. Yeah. And
So
I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, we have a couple of questions here quickly to answer in the chat, but our time is
Okay.
up.
mhm. So I think we if you're able to address those questions quickly, that is wonderful. And yeah, the time I have a little closing, but I can be very quick with that. And also, I think our presenters, if you can share, if you've shared your contact information, that can also be a form of following up. But yeah, so let's try a bit of a quick response here. Would you recommend a Gladi report for your Indigenous clients?
I'm not exactly sure what that means, but would we recommend a GLADU report in context to the brain injury? I'm not quite sure. Could you speak to that? I'm not sure who asked that.
So yeah, that came from Terry.
Terry, could you help me just understand what you mean there?
So there's a follow-up comment to say the brain injury information.
Yeah. Well, again, this has to be considered carefully. We've seen this throughout the system that sometimes when people's problems are identified, they also feel that it can be used against them later. That is a barrier, and we have to be aware of it. I think it would be case dependent. Right now, if a client wants to work with us and they want to acknowledge it, we are including that in support letters for release plans. But I think it would have to be very, yes, Sue, I'm aware, but when people go into the prisons, sometimes they don't want the prisons to know about their healthcare needs. So you'd have to be, and they won't disclose it actually also. So I think it's a case by case basis in my mind.
And then we'll leave this as our last question before closing. Do you have any ideas of how to reach the courts with education and training regarding ABI?
Well, Flora's doing some development of some training right now. And we've been doing consulting. When I say we, I mean it's largely led by this research team by far, but consulting with these different players in the court to see what the training needs are and developing some training. So first job is consulting, but going forward, I think Flora is going to have some really good training tools that she's working on right now.
Yeah, and Allison, if you want to reach out to me and have a chat, I'm happy to do that if that's helpful.
Sue, I'm going to be in touch with you. I'm really interested in how we can work together too. So I'm going to be in touch with you, Sue.
All
Thanks,
right.
Allison.
Conference is working. People are meeting, people are chatting, people are making connections and future plans. This is exactly what we've come here to do. And so, with that in mind, and knowing that we are well entering into a lunchtime period, please join me and thanking our speakers for their presentation. On our little Zoom bar, you can see a little heart reaction button. You can click it, and then you can click another button, and then we can have maybe a little floating hearts. There we go.
Oh my God.
Okay. I know, isn't it fun? And so for all of our delegates, um, as mentioned at the beginning, there is a survey for each of the sessions. So if you go back into the platform, you can fill out that survey. Um, Also, as you're heading into the afternoon sessions, for little reminders, you can click a little calendar button on those platforms to say, this is the thing I want to attend. It'll give you that little note reminder, go into your calendar. There is also a final evaluation for the whole conference that is coming up. As we head into the next bit, we are taking an hour break for lunch. So there is actually within that lunch break a lunchtime session. So from 12:15 to 12:45 called Peer Support in Action, the Young Adult Cannabis Harm Reduction Digital Storytelling Project. So if that is of interest to you, you can have a little lunch and learn session. And then Following that lunchtime session at 1 o'clock, our keynote speaker, Guy Felicella, will be presenting. So you can click the join button for that keynote presentation. And then we'll have our afternoon series at starting those sessions at 2:30. So that would then close out the conference. So we got a lunch break, we got a keynote, we have a session D round. And again, thank you to our presenters, thank you to our moderators, and our delegates for participating today. Have a wonderful lunch hour.
Thanks. Nice to meet everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice facilitation. Appreciate it.